In the basketball world, the name James is royalty. It means championships, it means billions, and it means power. But in my courtroom, a name is just what goes on the arrest warrant. The defendant was Bronny James, the son of the king himself, LeBron James. Bronny didn't walk in like a criminal. He walked in like he was entering the Crypto.com arena for a pregame warm-up. He was wearing a purple and gold Lakers tracksuit, headphones around his neck, and a diamond pendant shaped like a crown, but all eyes were on his feet. He was wearing a pair of neon orange LeBron 20s. They were bright, loud, and, as the prosecutor would soon prove, stolen. He stopped at the defense table, did a quick stretch, and leaned on the podium, chewing gum. "State your name," I said, waiting for him to settle down. "Bronny," he said, popping a bubble. "But you can call me the Prince. Everyone does." "I will call you Mr. James," I replied. "Case number 23, GOAT. The charge is robbery in the second degree." I looked at the file, then at the victim's bench. A 14-year-old boy named Kevin was sitting there looking small and terrified. He was wearing old tattered flip-flops in the middle of winter. "Mr. James," I continued, "the report says that 2 days ago, at the Ruggles Park basketball court, you approached this young man, Kevin. You stopped his game. You told him he was disgracing the Silhouette because he missed 3 free throws in a row. And then, surrounded by your security team, you forced him to take off his sneakers, his own property, and hand them to you." Bronny chuckled, shaking his head. "Whoa, hold up, Judge. Forced is a strong word. I didn't rob him. I did a quality control recall." "Excuse me?" I asked. "Look," Bronny explained, using his hands to gesture. "My dad built this empire from nothing. The LeBron brand stands for excellence. It stands for winning. That kid?" He pointed at Kevin without even looking at him. "He was bricking shots. He had holes in his socks. He was moving slow. He was making the product look defective. I can't have people thinking LeBrons make you play like that. It hurts the stock value. I simply revoked his privilege to wear the crown." "So you took them?" I asked. "I repossessed them," Bronny corrected. "Think of it like taking the keys away from a guy who can't drive a Ferrari. It was for his own good. He wasn't ready for that level of technology." "And where are those shoes now?" I asked, looking at his neon orange feet. Bronny smiled, lifting his left leg to show off the sneaker. "Right here, Judge. I had them sanitized, obviously, but look at the difference. On him they look cheap. On me, they look like a championship." The courtroom murmured. The arrogance was blinding. He was wearing the evidence. "Let me get this straight," I said, taking off my glasses slowly. "You left a child barefoot on a concrete court in November because you didn't like his jump shot? And now you are wearing his shoes in front of a judge." "I'm wearing my family's shoes," Bronny smirked. "Technically, everything with that logo belongs to us. He was just renting the swagger, and his lease expired." I felt a cold anger rising. This wasn't just theft. It was the ultimate entitlement. "Mr. James," I said quietly, "you think you own the game? You think you own the culture?" I pointed the gavel at him. "You are about to find out that in this room, there are no referees to bail you out, and being the king's son doesn't give you immunity from being a thief." I signaled to the clerk, Officer Martinez, to dim the courtroom lights. The heavy oak shutters were drawn, plunging the room into a tense, cinematic semi-darkness, illuminated only by the cold blue glow of the large 85-inch evidence monitor mounted on the wall. Usually the evidence I see is impersonal. Grainy traffic cameras, static red light snapshots, maybe a blurry CCTV from a Walmart parking lot. But this video was different. This was 4K resolution. It was high-definition cruelty, filmed on a top-of-the-line smartphone by one of Bronny's own entourage members and posted to TikTok with the caption, "Cleaning up the streets. Brand protection. The Prince arrives." The video began with the shaking, vertical perspective of a phone camera. The setting was Ruggles Park, a gritty, iconic basketball court in the lower South Providence neighborhood. The sky was the color of iron. The trees were bare, their skeletal branches rattling in the biting November wind. You could almost feel the cold radiating from the screen. In the center of the frame, alone, was Kevin. He was wearing a faded, oversized gray hoodie that had been washed too many times and basketball shorts that hung below his knees. He was shivering, his breath visible in small white puffs in the air. But he wasn't leaving. He was practicing free throws. Thump, swish, thump, swish. You could hear the rhythm of his dedication. The net was torn, the rim was rusted, but Kevin was locked in. He wasn't playing for a crowd. He was playing because the court was his sanctuary. On his feet, flashing like beacons against the cracked gray concrete, were the bright neon orange LeBron 20s. They were the only clean, new thing on him. They looked like jewels. Then, the camera panned violently to the left. The audio spiked with the sound of a heavy engine. A matte black luxury SUV, a Mercedes G-Wagon with tinted windows, rolled up onto the curb, illegally parking on the frost-covered grass. The doors swung open in unison. Bronny stepped out. In the video, he looked even more imposing than in my courtroom. He was flanked by 3 other boys, all dressed in pristine designer streetwear, Supreme, Off-White, Gallery Depth. They didn't walk onto the court, they invaded it. They moved with the swagger of people who knew there were no consequences for them. "Yo, hold up, cut the feed!" Bronny's voice boomed through the court speakers, distorted by the microphone but clear enough to hear the arrogance. On screen, Kevin froze. He clutched the basketball to his chest, his eyes wide. He recognized who Bronny was immediately. You could see a flicker of excitement in his face at first. The king's son is here, a moment of pure fanboy joy. But that excitement died instantly when he saw the look on Bronny's face. It wasn't a look of camaraderie. It was a look of disgust. Bronny walked right up to the free throw line, stepping into Kevin's personal space, violating the unspoken boundary of the court. The camera zoomed in, capturing the fear in Kevin's eyes. "Let me see the feet," Bronny commanded, pointing down with a lazy finger. Kevin took a step back, clutching the ball tighter. "What? The kicks, man. The shoes," Bronny snapped, snapping his gum. "Let me see them. Are those the uninterrupted colorway, the release from last month?" "Yeah," Kevin stammered, looking down proudly. "I just got them. I saved up all summer." Bronny laughed. It was a cruel, performative laugh, meant for the camera, meant for the millions of followers watching. He turned to his friends. "He saved up all summer, guys. Isn't that cute? He thinks he's part of the team." Then Bronny turned back to Kevin, his face hardening into a mask of corporate enforcement. "Well, you wasted your money. Look at the stance. You're creasing the toe box. You're dragging the heels when you pivot. You look like a clown out here. You are disrespecting the silhouette." I'm just playing," Kevin whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind. "That's the problem," Bronny sneered. "You play like trash. And when you play like trash wearing my name, wearing my father's logo, you make us look like trash. It's a trademark violation. You're diluting the brand equity." Bronny snapped his fingers. "Take them off." The silence in the courtroom was absolute. I looked at the jurors. Their mouths were slightly open. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. A multimillionaire bullying a child over a shoe. On the screen, Kevin shook his head, hugging the ball. "No, these are mine. I bought them. I have the receipt." "And I'm repossessing them," Bronny said, stepping closer, towering over the 14-year-old. "You have 3 seconds to unlace them and hand them over, or my security consultant over there," he pointed to a large, silent boy in the back, "is going to help you take them off. And he doesn't use his hands. He just steps on you." The threat was clear. Kevin looked around. The park was empty. No parents, no police. He was alone with the prince. Slowly, with trembling hands, Kevin bent down. He set the basketball on the cold ground. It rolled away, stopping against the fence. He untied the laces. His fingers were stiff from the cold. He slipped his feet out of the shoes, stepping onto the freezing, dirty concrete in his mismatched socks. One sock was white, the other gray. Both had holes in the heels, revealing his skin to the biting air. Bronny snatched the shoes from the ground before Kevin could even stand up. He held them up to the camera, inspecting them like a diamond merchant checking for flaws. "See," Bronny said to the lens, "rescued. We'll get these cleaned up. Maybe burn some sage over them to get the poverty off. Can't have that losing energy infecting the product." "Thanks for the donation, kid," Bronny said, turning his back on Kevin. "Walk home. Maybe the cold will teach you to work on your jump shot. Or maybe just stick to soccer." The video ended with the image of Kevin standing alone on the court, shivering violently, watching the G-Wagon drive away with his prized possessions, leaving him barefoot in the urban winter. I signaled for the lights to come back up. The transition from the cold gray of the video to the warm wood of the courtroom was jarring. I felt a heavy, cold stone in my stomach. This wasn't robbery. This was the systematic dismantling of a child's dignity for content. I turned my chair to face Bronny. He was checking his reflection in his watch face, looking completely bored. Mr. James, I said, my voice dangerously low. We just watched you force a child to walk home barefoot in November. You laughed about it. You posted it on the internet as content. Bronny shrugged, unbothered. It got 2 million likes, Judge. The comments were on my side. People respect the drip. They know you can't have amateurs messing up the aesthetic. It's about standards. Standards? I repeated, gripping the armrest of my chair. That boy is a human being. He is a fan. He is a customer. He spent his own money to support your family's business. And I refunded him, Bronny interrupted, rolling his eyes. Emotionally. Look, I did him a favor. Those shoes were too big for him anyway. He was going to trip and hurt himself. I'm basically a safety inspector. I saved him an ankle sprain. I looked at the victim's bench. Kevin was shrinking into his seat, trying to make himself invisible. His mother had her arm around him, glaring at Bronny with a hatred that could burn down the building. Kevin, I called out gently, can you stand up for me, son? Kevin stood up slowly. He looked small, vulnerable, but he held his head up. Kevin, tell me about those shoes, I asked. Mr. James says you were disrespecting them. Tell me how you got them. Did your parents buy them for you? Kevin took a deep breath. His voice was shaky, cracking with puberty and fear. No, Your Honor, he began. My mom works 2 shifts. She pays the rent. She doesn't have money for Jordans or LeBrons. He looked down at his feet. He was wearing a pair of cheap canvas slip-ons now. I mow lawns, Your Honor, Kevin continued, his voice gaining a little strength. And I shovel snow in the winter. I charge $10 a driveway. It took me 8 months to save up $200. I saved every quarter. I didn't buy candy. I didn't go to the movies. He wiped a tear from his cheek with his sleeve. My dad left when I was little, Kevin whispered. But he used to watch basketball. He loved LeBron. He said LeBron was a hero because he came from nothing. He came from Akron. He didn't have a dad either, but he worked hard and became the king. I thought if I wore his shoes, maybe I could be like that too. Maybe I could be strong. Maybe I could feel like a winner. The room was silent. You could hear the hum of the ventilation system. When he took them, Kevin said, pointing a shaking finger at Bronny, he didn't just take the shoes. He laughed at my socks. He laughed at my game. He made me feel like I'm not allowed to dream. Like the shoes are only for rich people. Like I'm just trash, the gallery murmured. A woman in the back row let out a soft, "Oh, Lord." The emotional weight of Kevin's words hung in the air like smoke. He hadn't bought sneakers. He had bought a symbol of hope, and the son of that symbol had stolen it. I looked back at Bronny. I expected to see shame. I expected to see him lower his eyes. Instead, Bronny scoffed. He actually rolled his eyes and let out a loud sigh. "Oh, cry me a river," Bronny muttered loud enough for the microphone to catch. "It's a sob story, Judge. My daddy left. Boo-hoo. Join the club, kid. Life is hard. You don't see me crying about pressure. I have the biggest shadow in the world to live under. I hustle. If he wants the shoes back, he should work harder. Maybe mow more lawns. That's capitalism, survival of the fittest." He pointed a finger at Kevin. "Honestly, kid, you should be thanking me. You're famous now. You're the barefoot boy meme. You gained 10,000 followers overnight. You can probably get a GoFundMe out of this. I gave you a platform. I gave you clout. That was the breaking point. The casual cruelty, the monetization of bullying, the complete lack of empathy." I stood up. I didn't slam the gavel this time. I placed my hands flat on the desk and leaned forward until I felt like I was looming over the entire courtroom. "Mr. James," I said, my voice vibrating with a calm, terrifying intensity, "you talk about capitalism. You talk about brand. You talk about hustle. You have never hustled a day in your life," I said. "You were born on the finish line, and you think you won the race. You think because your last name is on the building, you own the concrete." I pointed at the neon orange shoes on his feet, the shoes that Kevin had bled for. "You are wearing stolen property. You are wearing the sweat and tears of that boy's labor. You think those shoes make you look like a king." I paused, letting the silence stretch until it was painful. "From where I am sitting, they make you look like a thief. A thief in a purple tracksuit." Bronny's smile faltered for the first time. The word thief wasn't cool. It wasn't viral. It was criminal. "You want to talk about value?" I continued. "You said that boy was depreciating the value of the shoes. You're wrong. A shoe is just leather and rubber until someone steps into it. Kevin filled those shoes with hard work. You filled them with arrogance." "And in this court," I said, reaching for the sentencing book, Arrogance is a liability that I am about to liquidate. Officer Quinn, I barked. Secure the courtroom and bring me a pair of evidence bags, large ones. Bronny looked down at his feet, suddenly realizing what was about to happen. Wait, he said, his voice jumping an octave. What do you mean evidence bags? These are unreleased. These are player exclusives. You can't touch these. Oh, I'm not just going to touch them, I said, a grim smile appearing on my face. I'm going to repossess them. Bronny looked at the evidence bags in Officer Quinn's hands, then down at his bright orange sneakers, then up at me. For the first time, the cool facade cracked. He looked genuinely confused, as if I had asked him to take off his skin. You want me to take them off? Bronny stammered. Here, on this floor? Judge, do you know how many germs are on a public floor? This is a health violation. I have a game tomorrow. Kevin walked home on concrete, I reminded him, my voice hard. He walked on glass and gravel in freezing temperatures because of you. I think you can handle a little polished wood. But these are custom, Bronny argued, clutching the table. I can't just hand them over. They're part of the fit. If I take them off, the whole silhouette is ruined. The silhouette is already ruined, I said, because it is built on theft. Now take them off, or Officer Quinn will assist you, and I promise you, he is not worried about creasing the toe box. Officer Quinn took a heavy step forward. His hand rested on his belt. He didn't say a word. He just stared at Bronny's ankles. Bronny let out a frustrated groan, a sound like a spoiled child being told to eat his vegetables. He kicked his chair back and bent down. The courtroom watched in silence. It was a mirror image of the video we had just seen. But this time the bully was the one bending the knee. Bronny aggressively untied the laces, muttering under his breath about lawsuits and calling my agent. He yanked the left shoe off, then the right. He threw them onto the table with a loud clatter. He stood up. He was wearing socks that probably cost $500 Gucci with a tiger print. But without the massive bright sneakers, he looked shorter. He looked deflated. He looked silly. Happy? Bronny snapped, wiggling his toes in the expensive socks. I hope you enjoy holding them. You're holding history. Those shoes have been on the feet of royalty. I am holding evidence, I corrected him. I reached over and picked up the sneakers. They were heavy, high-tech, designed for flight. But in my hands, they just felt like rubber. I turned to Kevin. Kevin, come here, please. The boy walked up to the bench, his cheap canvas slip-ons making a soft shuffling sound. He looked at his shoes in my hands, eyes wide. Mr. James said these shoes were polluted by you, I said softly, looking at the sneakers. He said you made the brand look bad. I turned the shoe over. I looked at the sole. It was worn down. I see wear on the heel, I noted. I see scuffs on the toe. Bronny snorted from the background. Exactly. Trash condition. Zero resale value. No, I said, cutting him off. This isn't trash condition. This is work condition. I looked at Bronny. You see scuffs. I see practice. I see a boy who spent hours on that court, grinding, trying to get better. These marks aren't flaws, Mr. James. They are badges of honor, something you wouldn't understand because your shoes are pristine. You don't wear them to play. You wear them to pose. I handed the shoes down to Kevin. Take them, son. They belong to you, and I want you to wear them out. I want you to wear them until the soles fall off. Kevin took the shoes like they were made of gold. He clutched them to his chest, burying his face in them for a second to hide a sob. Thank you, Judge, he whispered. Put them on, I smiled. Right now. Let's see how they look. Kevin sat on the floor, right there in the center of the court, and slipped his feet back into his shoes. He laced them up tight. He stood up. He stood taller. The transformation was instant. He wasn't the victim anymore. He was the kid who earned his kicks. I turned my attention back to the man in the Gucci socks. Bronny was shifting his weight from foot to foot. He looked uncomfortable. The floor was cold. Okay, very touching, Bronny said, crossing his arms. He got his little shoes back. Case closed, right? Can I go? I have a reservation at Nobu in an hour. Go? I asked, leaning back in my chair. Mr. James, we haven't even discussed your sentence. Sentence? Bronny laughed nervously. Come on, Judge. It was a prank. He got the property back. No harm, no foul. I'll Venmo him $1,000 for his trouble. Let's call it a consulting fee and go home. You still don't get it, I said, shaking my head. You think this is a transaction. You think you can buy forgiveness. I opened the sentencing book. You committed robbery. You committed intimidation. And worst of all, you tried to steal a child's self-esteem. That is not something you can fix with a Venmo transfer. But I'm Bronny James, he shouted, his voice cracking. My dad is the king. You can't punish me. Do you know what this will do to the stock price? Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are, I said calmly. You are a young man standing in his socks, about to learn that the law doesn't care about your last name. You like shoes so much? You like fashion? I asked. Well, I have an outfit for you. It's not purple and gold. It's bright orange. It's a jumpsuit. Bronny's eyes bulged. Jail? You're sending me to jail? For sneakers? Not for sneakers, I said. For the arrogance of thinking you could walk all over people. But I can't go to jail, Bronny panicked, looking at his bodyguards, who were powerless to help him. I have a reputation. I'm an influencer. I have sponsors. Not anymore, I said. Now you are just an inmate. But I'm going to give you a choice, I added, pausing for effect. Bronny froze. A choice? What choice? You can go to jail for 30 days, I said. Or you can accept a different kind of sentence. A sentence that will hurt your ego much more than your record. Bronny swallowed hard. What is it? I call it the walk of shame. Bronny swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. The word jail had terrified him, but the phrase walk of shame seemed to confuse him even more. He looked down at his tiger print Gucci socks, vibrating against the cold floor. What do you mean? Bronny asked. What is the walk of shame? You made Kevin walk home in the cold, I explained, leaning forward. You stripped him of his dignity because you didn't like his brand. You thought he looked like a clown. Well, Mr. James, justice is about balance. Since you care so much about footwear, I have decided to curate your outfit for the next 6 months. I opened the file to the sentencing page. Option A is jail. You wear orange, you eat gruel, and you share a toilet with a stranger. Option B, I continued, is probation, but with strict conditions. I'll take B, Bronny shouted immediately. I'll take B, anything but jail. I have endorsements. Don't be so quick to answer, I warned. Here are the conditions. First, you are sentenced to 500 hours of community service at the Souls for Souls Charity Center. Bronny blinked. The charity? Doing what? Signing autographs? I can do that. No, I smiled. You will be in the back room. Your job is to scrub, sanitize, and restore old donated sneakers, smelly, dirty, worn-out sneakers. You are going to clean the mud off the shoes of the people you called peasants. You are going to learn that every scuff mark tells a story of hard work. Bronny looked like he was about to vomit. Touch used shoes? But I have soft hands. I'm a shooter. Buy some gloves, I said, and here is the second condition. I signaled to Officer Quinn. The bailiff reached under his desk and pulled out a clear plastic bag. Inside was a pair of bright pink, cheap plastic shower flip-flops, the kind they give to inmates. You cannot leave this courtroom in those socks, I said. They are too expensive. They represent the ego that got you in trouble. Officer Quinn will confiscate them as proceeds of arrogance. You want my socks? Bronny gasped, clutching his ankles. Take them off, I ordered, and put these on. I pointed to the pink plastic flip-flops. These are your new kicks, Mr. James. You will wear these out of the courthouse. You will walk past the paparazzi. You will walk past your fans. And you will feel the cold air on your toes, just like Kevin did. Bronny looked at the flip-flops with horror. It was a fashion death sentence. Judge, please, he begged, his voice trembling. Cameras are outside. TMZ is there. I'll be a laughingstock. My image will be ruined. Your image is already ruined, I snapped. This is how you rebuild your character. Humility starts from the ground up. So what will it be, the flip-flops or the handcuffs? Bronny looked at the handcuffs on Quinn's belt. He looked at the pink plastic shoes. He closed his eyes, defeated. Give me the flip-flops, he whispered. Slowly, painfully, Bronny peeled off his $500 socks. He handed them to the bailiff. Then, with a look of pure misery, he slid his feet into the cheap, squeaky plastic sandals. They were 2 sizes too small. His heels hung off the back. Squeak, squeak. He took a step. The sound was ridiculous. I turned to Kevin. The boy was beaming, wearing his neon orange LeBrons, looking like a giant next to the slumped figure of Bronny. Kevin, I said, you look good, son. Keep practicing, and remember, the shoes don't make the man makes the shoes. I will, Your Honor, Kevin said, standing tall. Mr. James, I addressed Bronny one last time. Your father calls himself the king. Do you know what makes a true king? Bronny shook his head, staring at his pink toes. A true king serves the people. He doesn't steal from them. Now get out of my courtroom, and try not to trip. Dismissed. I banged the gavel. Bronny turned to leave. There was no swagger left, no spin moves, just the humiliating clack squeak of plastic on wood as he shuffled down the aisle. The gallery watched in silence, but you could feel the satisfaction in the air. The prince had been humbled. As the doors swung shut behind the pink flip-flops, I looked into the camera. We live in a world obsessed with brands, I said. We judge people by what they wear, not who they are, but in the end, we all walk the same path. So make sure you walk it with kindness, because you never know when you might end up in someone else's shoes. I'm Judge Frank Caprio. Walk tall.